The driver's side engine mount is very simple. You just loosen off that 13mm nut. There's a matching nut underneath right there. You remove that one, and then you raise the engine up either with a jack or with an engine stand, and you just remove the mount. So our next step now is we are going to remove the sway bar. 2 bolts on each side, 1, 2. Let it hang so that we can start loosening off the subframe bolts so we can remove these engine mounts. All right, that's why we have the engine supported, so that the engine can stay where it is, and then we can lower the subframe down and do the work we need to do. See the mess I'm in? All right, we got the support off the exhaust hanging. We got the entire subframe down, and I got it supported on my bench. So the subframe is supported. It won't fall any further than that. The suspension is also holding it up. And then with my engine stand, I lowered the engine as far as I can so that a wrench can actually fit over the engine mount. And I don't see any other way you can do this unless there's a special tool to get in there, and most people won't have it. So as you can see, with this lowered as far down as it is, and it's very low, it slides underneath here, underneath this cross rail, and that's how you can finally get a wrench. If you have an adjustable ratchet wrench, you probably get it even faster. This is potentially the easiest way you could do it without having a hoist, because you could substitute that for jack stands, have the engine supported across, you know, $80, and just lower down the motor until you get enough clearance to get your wrench in between here where the engine mount goes. So here's our nut right here, and there's our engine mounts. As you can see, the driver's side one was leaking, but as you can see, this one's not any better. So let's see the new ones. There's our engine mount. It's collapsed. Can you tell? Just slightly. That's all it takes. So that's our passenger side one. Here is our driver's side one. You can obviously tell this one's higher. It's pretty simple to tell. So now we're going to install these. So you want to just install, these are the tops. They fit in here. So I'll just show you on this side because it's much easier. See right in there. Okay, so move your tabs. And as you can see, this would go in like so. Grab your nut. This one you can tighten when everything's done from the top, but you want to get it snug. Remember, it uses like a Loctite material. So the best thing to do is you're gonna have to ratchet it on. I don't know how easy it is for people to see that, but as you can see, there it is. I'm just gonna tighten it up now. Just get a ratchet in here. You just want to tighten this down because we want it sitting in those grooves. All right, so there's one. So we can tighten that down. Now we'll do the other side. So now on the other side, it's a little more tricky. So you get your mount in here, and what I find is the easiest way to put this mount in is to actually screw the mount into the actual nut instead of trying to tighten the nut down. And just kind of spin it on. So we got our 13. We put our 13 on. As we can see, both engine mounts are assembled and tight. So the next step is to reinstall everything. So we'll be right back. As you start raising the engine and then raising the subframe back up, don't tighten it all the way, any of the side. Use a 1/2 inch extension. These are alignment holes. There's actually a specific tool from Audi to make sure you're going back lined up. So I would just put 2 1/2 inch small extensions in there, and then you'll see that it pretty much fits perfect. What you could do is actually get a socket that fits perfect in there. Using a 14mm socket, just make sure that the 14mm socket fits right through, and now your alignment holes are all lined up. It is recommended you do an alignment. As you can see, all the holes lined up. If it doesn't, you kind of just pry it back and forth as you're tightening this whole assembly up. This will keep things as close as possible. So as you can see, it's still a little in this way. So what you could do is pry it back this way. As you can see, you want it to fit in there as loose as possible. So that's how you're gonna line up this front subframe. There's no alignment in the back. It just bolts up. As you can see, those are the bolts that need to line up. So everything here is ready to go back. All right, so now we're just gonna slowly raise the engine. And as we raise the engine, we wanna actually raise the engine with the crane, with the engine hoist, because we don't want to compress the subframe up into the mounts. You see what I'm saying? So we want to go up with it slowly and get all the small bolts lined up, especially the rear ones. Now, okay, now as we do that, we are checking our alignment bolts. Like, we want to be able to slide this up and down. So we got our alignment bolt here, and it's pretty tight on this side. So what we want to do is find out why it's tight. So it's tight because it needs to go in a certain direction. So now that we have that, we can tighten up the front ones closer. So you always want to start with the subframe one here, the big one. Remember I said, once we start pushing up on the motor, we need to raise the engine. So now as we can see here, if the engine mount is resting, and it is, so we go up top and we raise the engine some more. Okay, so now once again, we're off the subframe. So we can come down here again. Same thing, we got our alignment bolt still moving in and out. This side still moving in and out. So we are almost prepared to fully tighten this down. Alright, so now our subframe is fully supported by the bolts. What we're going to do is we're going to move this support out of the way again. We do not need it anymore. So we have our wood. And take it out. And this has worked on many jobs that videos that I will post in the future. So the other side actually works better than this side. So let's see where we've gone wrong. So it goes in. So it needs to go this way. So all we gotta do, if we know it's not tightened, we just gotta go and pry this that way. Okay. And there it is. See? So now we're good. This one right here that goes right through the subframe is 81 plus a quarter turn. So 1. So we're gonna do them all. 2, 3. Now we do a quarter turn. Approximately a quarter turn. That's good. The other ones are 55 foot-pounds. The smaller bolts. So these ones here are 55. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now you're completely torqued. Your subframe is safe. You can lower the engine back down. So if you're on the ground, this would be easier. So now I could take all the weight off of this support, and now all the weight goes on the motor mounts. And you can see we weren't too far off. There we go. So now that is complete. All the engine weight is now on the engine mounts. So now we're going to tighten the engine on bolts. There they are. You can't torque the engine mount from the top. It's just impossible. But you can torque this one. And it's 18 foot-pounds. Do the other side. Alright, your engine mounts are torqued. Something else we got to work on is putting this bracket back on. This bracket right here, I don't know if any of you guys can see it, but you had to remove it to do it. It's just a little wiring loom, and I think pretty much it just slides in and clips on, and that's it. Okay, everything else is done here. What else do we need to do here? Got to put these back on. So you're just gonna put your 4 subframe bushings back on. Okay, so the sway bar bushing as well are 18 foot-pounds. We're just going to torque them both. Alright, so as we know, this has a bad bearing. So we got a new replacement, and it just fits on here. Bolt just goes on there. I'm actually going to put some Loctite on it, because it looks like you had it from the past. Some Loctite on there. Tighten it up. I believe that's sufficient. We'll get our ratchet. I could not actually find a torque spec for this in the manual. That's good. Not gonna go anywhere. So now we're gonna mount it onto the vehicle. It goes on like this. 13 millimeter. Not very important to be torqued. Just look at the size of the bolts and what it's doing. You get your 17 mil wrench, and there's actually a place where you're supposed to put this right through there. Okay, and there you are. This just allows everything to be a little bit easier. Now you can see the orientation of the belt is definitely not like that. Okay, so let's see. The belt does not go like this. Yeah, it does. And there's your orientation. Now if we release our pin, we'll see if the tension holds up. Okay. Alright, and there we go. Make sure your belt is on everywhere. And as you can see, it's not on the bottom. It's off. There you go. Good. Make sure it's in the grooves. Everything is good there. Okay, so another thing we have to do is we got to replace our snub mount. As you can see, it's torn. There we go. Nice and clean. Get some grease. Lubricate it. Here's the orientation, because the bigger side sits inside the subframe. You just gotta press it in by hand. That's why I put some grease on it. And here we are, our mount installed. All right, all the hoses are reconnected. I use different clamps because it's literally impossible to get the original clamps back on. So just use some good aftermarket clamps. Another thing you might want to open is just crack this 10 mil right here. So this is like your bleeder. So you're gonna wait for coolant to come out of there. All right, right there. So just keep filling it up. It's gonna take a while to fill. All right, so the vehicle's running. I had a little problem with the new tensioner pulley that I bought. It was rubbing on the actual timing cover because I had installed it backwards. So now it is installed correctly, but I still think maybe my tensioner needs to be replaced. It's moving more than I want. Other than that, it's just as noisy as it was before. No knocking. Timing must be bang on. It hasn't blown up yet. And now we just gotta bleed the cooling system, so that's just time. So you set the heat in the vehicle to high, max. You want the air on the feet and the center console, not at the top. And then you wanna just put it on the lowest fan setting and just run the car until the vehicle, the coolant gets down, the thermostat opens up. You'll know the thermostat opens up because the thermostat's in there. So until that opens up, this pipe here, right here, will remain cold until the coolant transfers in and it's allowed to pass through. So just keep an eye on that pipe. And when it's warm and hot, that means the coolant has now, when it's warm and hot, that means the coolant has now passed through and is now going back to the bottom of the radiator. So that's what the thermostat does. So that's how you know it's open. And also when the fans turn on, you know you've gone through a heat cycle. All right, guys. So the Audi A4 is done. We did valve cover gasket, rear cam cover gasket, inspect the cam chain, inspect the tensioner. We did the high pressure fuel pump, cam cover seal, the seal that goes around here. We did new seal on the actuator for the cam. We did the 3 plastic gaskets. They're like plastic rings that go inside the cam cover that distribute the oil. They were all cracked. We did those. High pressure fuel pump. We had some trouble getting the the H6 or M6 triple square bolt right there, that banjo right there, to seal. So we really had to refund it. So I recommend, if I was to do this again, I would get a new bolt. I would get a new brass fitting, everything new there. Not the high pressure pump, but just the fittings new, and I would torque everything to spec because it's probably been off a few times, so it was a little tough to seal. We bled the cooling system just by running it until the thermostat came on. Then we cracked this open while the fans were running until coolant came out, and your system is bled. Go for a road test, inspect everything. We did the timing belt, water pump, tensioner. The water pump was actually leaking. It was actually starting to leak and it was rusty. So it's a good thing we did it. We did both engine mounts. One was leaking. So we did the engine mounts. Pretty much did every single thing on this car. We did the engine mounts. We did the snub mount. New hoses on this that was leaking. Well, new fittings, clamps, new seal here on the PCV system. What else? Valve cover gasket, new tensioner pulley. It was noisy. Rad hose, which I broke this fitting right here. So be careful when you're working in this area. You lean on this, you're going to crack it. New hose here. New hose that connects to the thermostat line from the main line. This hose was almost glued on. We did the rear coolant flange, which is, while you're in there, you might as well do it when you have everything off. We did that flange. What else did we do? We did pretty much every seal that came off. It's all in the video. We took the entire front end apart. The whole front end came off so that we can put it in service mode. But I went further than that and I actually removed the entire thing. It's all back together now. It's all bolted in place. And it's all fitting pretty good. I don't see anything weird when it closes or anything, even though it is, you know, an old vehicle. So yeah, if you enjoyed that, then subscribe to the channel for more content on this car. We're going to drive it for a while in the spring. We might sell it and start on a new project, but we want to see and make sure that this vehicle is as good as it can be before it goes to the new home. So right now, let's just take a look at everything that's been done to this vehicle. The entire front suspension's been done to this vehicle. Pretty much every maintenance item under the hood. The battery's new, alternator's new. We fixed the door noises. We put new skirt on, new panel at the bottom that was damaged. We got A6 wheels. We did the rear brakes, rear suspension. We lowered it on the sport suspension. We fixed all the interior pieces. Everything works. Everything's clean. It's a wagon. We did the rear bumper. The only little bit of rust this whole entire car has is this, and that's solid. And right there. And that's it. Other than that, this car is mint. It drives well. And as soon as I can, I'm going to take it out on the road. Make sure everything's good. All right, guys. Have a good one.